Emma Foster had learned early in life that wealthy people guarded their privacy with cameras, alarms, and men who never smiled. The Pellegrini estate was no different. She counted at least 15 security personnel during her first walk through the marble entrance hall, each one watching her with the kind of attention that made her skin prickle. Miss Foster. The man who greeted her was tall, gray-haired, and spoke with the clipped efficiency of someone who had worked in this household for decades. "I'm Vincent, the house manager. Mr. Pellegrini is expecting you in his study." She followed him through corridors lined with art that probably cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Not that she would ever say that out loud. The agency had been very clear during her interview. Discretion was non-negotiable. Questions were discouraged. Opinions were unwelcome. Lorenzo Pellegrini stood by the window when Vincent opened the study door. He didn't turn immediately, and Emma used those few seconds to steady her breathing. She had seen his photograph during her research, but nothing prepared her for the physical presence of him. Broad shoulders filled out his dark suit. His hands were clasped behind his back, and even from across the room, she could sense the tension radiating from his frame. "Mr. Pellegrini, Miss Foster has arrived." He turned slowly. Brown eyes assessed her with an intensity that made her want to step backward. His face was striking in a way that photographs couldn't capture. All sharp angles and controlled strength. No smile softened his expression. "Thank you, Vincent." His voice was low, accented lightly with Italian inflection. "You may go." The door clicked shut. Emma kept her hands folded in front of her, willing herself to appear calm. "You come highly recommended," Lorenzo said, moving to his desk. He picked up a folder and flipped it open. 8 years of experience in pediatric care, fluent in Italian, references from 3 families in Boston. Emma nodded. "Yes, sir. My daughter is 6 years old. She was diagnosed with leukemia 4 months ago." He spoke without emotion, as if reading a medical report. "The treatment is aggressive. She requires round-the-clock monitoring, especially during the night when side effects are most severe." "I understand." His gaze lifted from the folder. "Do you?" "Because the previous 3 caregivers quit within 2 weeks. They said Sophia was difficult, unresponsive. They couldn't handle the silence." Emma felt something tighten in her chest. She had read about Sophia in the file the agency provided. 6 years old. Mother deceased 2 years prior. Selective mutism following trauma. Current medical treatment for acute lymphoblastic leukemia. "Children process grief differently than adults," Emma said carefully. "Silence doesn't mean she isn't communicating. It just means we need to learn her language." Something flickered in Lorenzo's expression. He set the folder down. "You'll work nights, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Sophia's medical team handles daytime care. Your job is to ensure she's comfortable, administer medication on schedule, and alert the on-call physician if anything changes. You'll have your own room in the staff wing. Meals are provided. Vincent will give you the household rules." "May I meet Sophia before I start?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. "Why?" "Because she should know who I am before I walk into her room in the middle of the night. Children respond better when they feel safe." Lorenzo studied her for a long moment. Then he moved toward the door. "Follow me." They walked through more corridors, up a staircase with an iron railing that probably predated the Civil War, and down a hallway painted in soft cream tones. Lorenzo stopped outside a door decorated with a small wooden sign that read, "Sophia's room," in elegant script. He knocked twice, then opened the door without waiting for a response. The bedroom was large and filled with afternoon light. Soft blue walls were covered with paintings of clouds and stars. A canopy bed sat against one wall, and near the window, a small girl sat in an oversized armchair, a book open in her lap. Sophia Pellegrini had her father's dark hair, though hers fell in loose curls around her face. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and Emma could see the faint outline of an IV port beneath her long-sleeved shirt. Brown eyes identical to Lorenzo's lifted when they entered, but she didn't speak. "Sophia." Lorenzo's voice changed when he addressed his daughter, becoming softer, but somehow more strained. "This is Miss Foster. She's going to be helping take care of you at night." The little girl looked at Emma but said nothing. Emma knelt down so they were at eye level. "Hi, Sophia." You can call me Emma if you'd like. I saw you're reading about butterflies. That's one of my favorite topics. No response. Sophia's gaze drifted back to her book. I'll let you get settled, Lorenzo said abruptly. He turned and left the room before Emma could respond. She stayed where she was, watching Sophia turn a page. I won't bother you if you'd rather read. But if you want to talk about butterflies later, I'd love to hear what you think about monarch migration patterns. Sophia's fingers paused on the page, just for a second. Then she continued reading. Emma stood and quietly left the room. Her first week passed in careful routine. She arrived each evening at 8, received updates from the day nurse, and settled into the chair beside Sophia's bed. The little girl never spoke. Sometimes she would draw. Sometimes she stared at the ceiling. Twice, she had episodes where the nausea from chemotherapy left her retching into a basin, while Emma held her hair back and murmured soothing sounds. Lorenzo never came to the room during Emma's shift. She saw him occasionally in passing, always dressed in dark suits, always surrounded by men who moved like they were trained for violence. Vincent explained that Mr. Pellegrini worked late hours, often until dawn. What Vincent didn't mention was the cameras. Emma noticed them on her third night. Small, discreet lenses tucked into the corners of Sophia's room. One near the door, one by the window, one above the bookshelf. She didn't mention them to anyone. In a household like this, surveillance was probably standard. On the 5th night, Sophia had a particularly difficult evening. The latest round of chemotherapy had left her weak and nauseous. Emma helped her change into fresh pajamas after the 3rd time she got sick, then settled her back into bed with cool cloths on her forehead. I know this is hard, Emma whispered, adjusting the blankets. But you're fighting so bravely. Your body is working really hard to get better. Sophia's eyes were closed, but her small hand reached out and gripped Emma's fingers. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact. Emma stayed there, holding her hand, until Sophia's breathing evened out into sleep. Then she began to hum softly, an old lullaby her mother figure used to sing. The melody was simple, the words in Neapolitan dialect that most people wouldn't recognize. She sang about stars and small stars, about night skies that watched over sleeping children, about morning light that would always return. Sophia's lips moved slightly, forming soundless words. Emma's breath caught. She kept singing, voice barely above a whisper, and watched as the little girl's mouth continued to shape the syllables she couldn't yet speak. 3 floors below, in a study lined with mahogany and leather-bound books, Lorenzo Pellegrini sat frozen in front of 3 monitors mounted on his wall. He had installed the camera system after the second caregiver quit, telling himself it was for security purposes, medical monitoring, liability protection. He knew he was lying to himself. The truth was simpler and more painful. He couldn't bear to be in that room, watching his daughter suffer, knowing he was powerless to stop it. The cameras let him be present without being present, a coward's compromise. Most nights, he worked through files and contracts with the monitors on mute in his peripheral vision. He told himself he was just checking periodically, making sure Sophia was safe. Tonight he had turned the sound on, and now he sat there, hands gripping the armrests of his chair, listening to a woman he barely knew sing the exact lullaby his wife used to sing to their daughter. Not just any version. The Neapolitan dialect, the specific melody Juliana had learned from her grandmother in Naples. A song so particular, so regional, that even most Italians wouldn't recognize it. On the screen, Sophia's lips moved. His daughter, who hadn't spoken a word in 2 years, was trying to sing along. Lorenzo's chest felt tight. His hands started to shake. How did Emma Foster know that song? How did she know the exact words, the exact melody, the exact inflection that Juliana had used? He watched as Emma gently brushed Sophia's hair back from her forehead, the gesture so achingly familiar that Lorenzo had to close his eyes. When he opened them again, Emma was still there, still singing softly, still holding his daughter's hand. For the first time since Juliana's death, Sophia looked peaceful. The song ended. Emma sat in silence for a few moments, then reached for a book on the nightstand. She began to read aloud, her voice steady and warm, and Sophia's eyes tracked the words, even though they were clearly growing heavy with sleep. Lorenzo forced himself to look away from the monitors. He poured a glass of whiskey with hands that still trembled slightly, then stood by the window overlooking the garden that Juliana had loved. Someone had sent Emma Foster to his home. Someone who knew about his daughter, about his wife, about private family moments that no outsider should possess. The question was whether that someone meant harm or something else entirely. He picked up his phone and sent a single text to his head of security. Full background on Emma Foster. Everything. I want it by morning. Then he returned to the monitors and watched as the stranger who knew his dead wife's lullabies read his daughter to sleep. Over the next several days, Lorenzo found himself watching the monitors more than working. Emma had established a routine with Sophia that seemed to bypass all the resistance his daughter had shown to previous caregivers. She never pushed Sophia to speak, never treated her silence as a problem to be solved. Instead, she talked to Sophia like a person, asked her questions, and then waited, genuinely waited, for responses that came in nods or head shakes or the occasional drawing. She taught Italian vocabulary through games, holding up objects and saying their names in both English and Italian, then celebrating when Sophia pointed to the correct item. On the 8th night, Emma brought materials for making bracelets. She sat cross-legged on the floor beside Sophia's bed and spread out colorful beads. In some cultures, Emma explained, people make bracelets to tell stories. Each color means something different. See this red one? That could mean courage. And blue could be strength. Sophia watched intently as Emma threaded beads onto elastic string. I think you need a lot of red beads, Emma continued, because fighting this illness takes so much courage, and maybe some gold ones for all the victories you're winning. Every day you get through treatment is a victory, Sophia. Every single one. Sophia's small hand reached for the beads. She selected a red one, then a gold one, then a purple one. Purple, Emma said. Good choice. That can represent creativity. Or maybe hope. What do you think? Sophia held up 3 fingers. 3 purple beads for hope? I love that. Together they worked on the bracelet. Sophia didn't speak, but she made choices, picked colors, showed Emma patterns she wanted. Lorenzo watched from his study, that familiar tightness returning to his chest. This woman was reaching his daughter in ways no one else had managed. Not the therapists, not the doctors, not even him. Especially not him. When his phone buzzed with the background report he'd requested, Lorenzo almost didn't want to read it. Part of him wanted to preserve whatever magic was happening in that room upstairs. But he was a man who survived by knowing things, by controlling variables, by never being surprised. He opened the file. Emma Foster, 28 years old. Born in Naples, Italy. Parents deceased. No living relatives in the system. Entered the United States 2 years ago on a work visa. Certifications in pediatric care appeared legitimate on the initial verification. Nothing in the agency checks raised a flag. Employment references checked out. But there were gaps. Years in Italy with no clear employment record. An address listed at an orphanage in Naples that his investigator noted with a question mark. Lorenzo set the phone down and looked back at the monitors. Emma was helping Sophia into bed now, tucking the blankets around her, with the same careful attention Juliana used to show. Then Emma did something that made Lorenzo's blood run cold. She leaned down and kissed Sophia's forehead, then traced a small cross on her daughter's brow with her thumb. It was a blessing gesture, a specific Neapolitan tradition that Juliana's family practiced, a tradition that no one outside that family should know. Lorenzo stood abruptly, his chair scraping against hardwood. He stared at the screen, watching as Emma settled into the chair beside Sophia's bed and opened a book. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't chance. Emma Foster had come to his home with knowledge she shouldn't possess, and he needed to know why. But even as suspicion churned in his gut, he couldn't ignore the other truth playing out on those monitors. For the first time in 2 years, his daughter was healing. And he had no idea whether Emma Foster was an angel sent to save them, or a threat he didn't yet understand. Emma learned to read Lorenzo Pellegrini's moods through small details. The set of his jaw when he entered a room, The way his hands moved when he was processing information he didn't like. The deliberate slowness of his speech when he was measuring every word. By her second week in the household, she recognized when he was watching her. It happened during shift changes, those brief moments when the day nurse left and Emma arrived. Lorenzo would appear in the hallway, pretending to review something on his phone or speak with Vincent about household matters. But his attention always drifted toward her, dark eyes tracking her movements with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. She couldn't afford his scrutiny, not when she had worked so hard to get here. "Miss Foster." His voice came from behind her one evening as she climbed the main staircase. "A moment, please." Emma turned, gripping the railing to steady herself. "Of course, Mr. Pellegrini." He gestured toward the sitting room off the main hall. She followed, aware of how the space seemed to shrink when he closed the door behind them. "Sophia seems comfortable with you," he said, moving to pour himself a drink from the crystal decanter on the sideboard. "More comfortable than she's been with anyone since her mother died. She's a remarkable child, strong-willed, even when she can't speak. You talk to her in Italian sometimes." It wasn't a question. Emma kept her expression neutral. "The agency mentioned you preferred someone fluent in the language. I thought it might comfort her to hear it. What dialect do you speak?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Emma chose her words carefully. "I learned in Naples. I lived there for several years." "Doing what?" "Working in care facilities. Learning the language. Trying to build a life." Lorenzo took a sip of his whiskey, never breaking eye contact. "Naples is a dangerous city for a young woman alone. I managed." "I'm sure you did." He set the glass down. "My wife was from Naples, Northern District, near Vomero. Her family still lives there." Emma felt heat creep up her neck, but forced herself to remain still. "It's a beautiful area. She used to make this dish." Lorenzo's tone shifted, becoming almost conversational. "Pasta with anchovies and breadcrumbs. Very specific recipe her grandmother taught her. I smelled something similar coming from the staff kitchen yesterday." Her breath caught. She had helped the cook prepare lunch, adding ingredients from muscle memory before realizing her mistake. Many Neapolitan families make similar dishes. "True." He moved closer, and Emma had to resist the urge to step back. "But the way you prepared it, the exact measurements, the timing, that was identical to how Juliana made it. Vincent commented on it, said it tasted exactly like the old days. I'm glad the staff enjoyed it." "You're deflecting." "I'm answering your questions, Mr. Pellegrini." His jaw tightened. "You know things you shouldn't know. Family recipes, regional lullabies that barely anyone outside Naples recognizes, gestures and phrases that my wife used. I want to understand how." Emma met his gaze directly. "I told you I lived in Naples. I learned from the people there. Sometimes cultures share traditions more widely than you might think, and sometimes people have connections they're hiding." The air between them crackled with tension. Emma could feel her heartbeat in her throat. If he pushed much harder, if he started digging into her past with the resources a man like him possessed, everything would unravel. "I'm here to take care of Sophia," she said quietly. "That's my only purpose. If my background bothers you, I can request a replacement through the agency." Lorenzo studied her face for a long moment. Then he exhaled slowly. "No. Sophia has finally started to respond to treatment. Changing caregivers now would set her back." Relief flooded through Emma, though she kept it hidden. "Then I'll continue my work. But understand this." He leaned in close, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I protect what's mine with everything I have. My daughter, my home, my family's memory. If you're here for any reason other than what you claim, I will find out. I would expect nothing less." They stood there, close enough that Emma could smell his cologne, see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. The attraction she'd been ignoring flared hot and dangerous between them. Lorenzo stepped back first. "Sophia had a difficult session yesterday. The doctors increased her medication dosage. Watch her carefully tonight." "I will." She left the sitting room on unsteady legs, taking the stairs slowly until she was certain he couldn't see her anymore. Then she pressed her back against the wall and closed her eyes, willing her racing heart to slow. This was becoming more complicated than she'd planned. That night, Sophia was restless from the moment Emma arrived. The increased medication made her nauseous, and she spent the first 2 hours curled on her side, refusing food or water. "I know it hurts," Emma murmured, pressing a cool cloth to Sophia's forehead. "But your body needs fuel to fight. Can you try just a few sips of water?" Sophia shook her head weakly. "What if I told you a story while you drink? One about a princess who was braver than any knight in the kingdom." The little girl's eyes opened slightly. She gave the smallest nod. Emma held the cup to Sophia's lips, letting her take tiny sips between sentences as she wove a tale about a princess with scars from battles against invisible dragons. A princess who lost her voice but learned to speak through her art, her kindness, her courage. By the time the story ended, Sophia had finished half the cup. "Good job," Emma said, setting it aside. "Your father would be so proud." Sophia's hand moved to her stomach, and Emma recognized the warning signs immediately. She grabbed the basin just as the little girl started retching, holding her steady through the violent waves of nausea. When it finally subsided, Sophia was crying silently, tears streaming down her pale face. "Shh, it's okay. It's okay, sweet girl." Emma cleaned her up with gentle hands, changed her into fresh pajamas, and settled her back against the pillows. "I know it's terrible. I know you're tired of being sick. But you're fighting so hard, and you're winning. Every day you get through this, you're winning." Sophia reached for Emma's hand and held it tight. They stayed like that for hours. Emma sang softly in Neapolitan, old songs about stars and morning light, and mothers who watched over their children from heaven. She told stories. She stroked Sophia's hair until the little girl finally fell into an exhausted sleep. Then Emma rested her head on the edge of the bed, still holding Sophia's hand, and let herself cry quietly for all the pain this child had endured. 3 floors below, Lorenzo sat in his study with his hands covering his face. He had watched everything, every moment of his daughter's suffering, every gentle word from Emma, every song, every story, every tender touch. And he had broken. Tears streamed down his face, hot and unstoppable. He hadn't cried since Juliana's funeral, had promised himself he would stay strong for Sophia. But watching Emma provide the comfort he should be giving, witnessing his daughter's pain from this cowardly distance, finally shattered what remained of his composure. He was failing her. His little girl needed a father who could sit beside her through the worst moments. And instead, he hid behind cameras and closed doors because he couldn't bear to face his own helplessness. Emma Foster, this stranger who knew impossible things, was being the parent he should be. The sun was rising when Vincent knocked on his study door. "Sir, you asked to be notified when Miss Foster's shift ended." Lorenzo wiped his face roughly, clearing away evidence of his breakdown. "Thank you." He climbed the stairs to Sophia's room, moving quietly. Emma was dozing in the chair beside the bed, still holding Sophia's hand. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hair had come loose from its usual neat style. She looked exhausted and beautiful, and completely devoted to his daughter. Sophia stirred as he entered. Her eyes opened, found Emma first, then drifted to him. "Papa," she whispered. Lorenzo froze. His daughter's voice, barely audible but unmistakable, speaking for the first time in 2 years. "Papa," Sophia said again, slightly stronger. Emma stayed all night. Emma jerked awake, disoriented. Then she saw Lorenzo standing in the doorway, saw the shock on his face, and understood what had just happened. "Sophia," Lorenzo breathed, crossing the room in 3 strides. He knelt beside the bed, taking his daughter's other hand. "You spoke." "I'm tired," Sophia whispered. "But Emma says tired is okay. Tired means I'm fighting. You are fighting. So bravely." His voice cracked. "I'm so proud of you." Sophia smiled faintly. Then her eyes closed again, drifting back into sleep. Lorenzo stayed on his knees, staring at his daughter's peaceful face. When he finally looked up at Emma, she saw something raw and vulnerable in his expression. "She spoke because of you," he said quietly. "She spoke because she was ready." "No," he shook his head. "I've watched you with her. I've seen how you reach her, how you make her feel safe in a way no one else has managed." He paused. "In a way I haven't managed." Emma wanted to argue, but the honesty in his admission stopped her. You love her. That's what matters. Love isn't enough if I'm too afraid to show it properly. Lorenzo stood, running a hand through his hair. I owe you more than a salary, Miss Foster. You've given my daughter her voice back. I just listened until she was ready to use it. Their eyes met, and that dangerous pull between them intensified. Emma felt it in her chest, warm and insistent. Lorenzo must have felt it too because he looked away first, jaw tightening. Get some rest, he said, his tone becoming formal again. You've earned it. He left before she could respond. Emma sat alone in the quiet room, watching Sophia sleep peacefully for the first time in days. The little girl's lips curved in the faint suggestion of a smile. Outside in the hallway, Lorenzo pulled out his phone and sent a single text to his consigliere. Increase priority on Emma Foster investigation. I need to know everything. Focus on Naples connections. Family. Friends. Anyone she might have known there. I want answers within 48 hours. He couldn't shake the feeling that Emma Foster was connected to his past in ways he didn't yet understand, and whether that connection was blessing or threat. He needed the truth before he let her any deeper into his life, because she was already dangerously close to his heart. The report arrived at 6 a.m, delivered in person by Lorenzo's consigliere, a man named Roberto, who had worked for the Pellegrini family since Lorenzo's father was alive. The information you requested, Roberto said, sliding a manila folder across the desk. Though I'll warn you, it raises more questions than it answers. Lorenzo opened the file, scanning the documents inside. Emma Foster, 28 years old, birth certificate from Naples. Parents listed as deceased when she was 12. Entry into the United States 2 years ago on a work visa sponsored by a healthcare staffing agency. But between age 12 and 26, there were gaps. Large, unexplained stretches of time with no employment records, no tax documents, no digital footprint. The orphanage, Lorenzo said, pointing to an address in Naples. Did you verify it? I did. Santa Maria delle Grazie, run by an order of nuns. They confirmed Emma Foster lived there from age 12 to 18, then returned periodically for several years after. They were hesitant to provide more details, cited privacy concerns. Lorenzo leaned back in his chair. Privacy concerns from nuns? They're protective of the children who pass through their care, especially ones who experience trauma. Roberto paused. There's something else. The work visa that brought her to the United States was legitimate, but the references she provided were minimal. Almost as if she deliberately kept her past vague, or someone helped her keep it vague. That's my thought as well. People don't have gaps this significant unless they're hiding something or being hidden. Lorenzo closed the file. Keep digging. I want to know who she knew in Naples, where she worked, how she supported herself. If she had connections to my wife's family, I need to know. Roberto nodded. There's one more thing. We intercepted communication yesterday. The 'Ndrangheta is making moves in Brooklyn, testing our territory. Antonio Rossi sent a message through intermediaries. The name made Lorenzo's blood run cold. Antonio Rossi was the kind of man who used family as weapons, who understood that the fastest way to break someone was through the people they loved. What did the message say? That he's noticed you've been distracted. That a sick child requires a lot of attention, makes a man vulnerable. Roberto's expression hardened. He didn't make explicit threats, but the implication was clear. Lorenzo stood abruptly, moving to the window. Dawn light filtered through the trees in the garden. Somewhere upstairs, Sophia was sleeping peacefully, probably still holding Emma's hand. Double the security detail. I want armed guards on rotation around the property, 24 hours. No one enters or leaves without clearance. And I want surveillance on Rossi's known locations. If he so much as looks toward this neighborhood, I want to know about it. Already done. I tripled the perimeter guards last night when the message came through. Good. Lorenzo turned back to face his consigliere. And Roberto? If Rossi makes a move toward my daughter, I don't care about the truce we've maintained. I don't care about territory negotiations. I will end him and everyone connected to him. Understood. After Roberto left, Lorenzo climbed the stairs to Sophia's room. He found Emma reading softly to his daughter, morning light catching the gold in her hair. Sophia was awake, eyes tracking the words, occasionally mouthing them along with Emma's voice. They both looked up when he entered, "Good morning, Papa," Sophia said. Her voice was still quiet, but she spoke without hesitation now. "Good morning, little star." He kissed her forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Tired, but Emma says tired is winning." "Emma is very wise." He glanced at the woman in question, who had set the book aside and was watching him with those blue eyes that seemed to see too much. "Miss Foster, I need to speak with you." Privately, Emma stood, touching Sophia's shoulder gently. "I'll be right back, sweetheart. Why don't you pick out which story you want to hear next?" They walked into the hallway. Lorenzo closed the door behind them, then guided Emma down the corridor to a small sitting area away from listening ears. "There's been a development," he said without preamble. "A security concern that requires changes to the household arrangements." Emma's expression remained calm, but he saw her shoulders tense slightly. "What kind of concern?" "The kind where people with bad intentions have taken notice of my family. Specifically, of Sophia's condition." He chose his words carefully. "In my line of work, weakness is exploited. A sick child makes me vulnerable in ways that can be used against me. You think someone would hurt Sophia? I think someone would threaten to hurt Sophia to get what they want from me." Lorenzo watched her process this information. "Which is why I need you here full-time. Not just night shifts. I want you living in the house, available around the clock during this phase of her treatment. Mr. Pellegrini, I appreciate the offer, but I have an apartment, a life outside of work. I'll pay triple your current rate. You'll have your own suite in the East Wing, private bathroom, full access to the kitchen and grounds. You won't be a prisoner, just closer in case Sophia needs you." Emma hesitated, and he could see the conflict in her face. "This feels like more than just medical care." "It is. It's protection." He moved closer, dropping his voice. "Sophia is thriving with you. She speaks now. She smiles. She participates in her treatment instead of just enduring it. I can't risk losing that progress if something happens and you're not here. You could hire additional security instead of asking me to move in. I have additional security. I have an entire team of people whose job is to keep this household safe." He held her gaze. "But none of them can do what you do for my daughter. None of them make her feel safe the way you do." The air between them shifted, charged with something that had nothing to do with security arrangements, and everything to do with the pull that kept drawing them together. "If I agree," Emma said quietly, "I need boundaries. Clear expectations. This can't blur lines that should stay firm. Agreed. You're Sophia's caregiver, nothing more. Professional at all times." Even as he said it, Lorenzo knew he was lying to both of them. The lines were already blurred beyond recognition. Emma moved into the East Wing that afternoon. She didn't have much to bring from her apartment, just 2 suitcases and a box of books. Lorenzo sent men to collect her belongings, insisting she shouldn't leave the property until the security situation stabilized. Her new suite was larger than her entire previous apartment. Bedroom with a 4-poster bed, sitting area with a fireplace, bathroom with a soaking tub. Windows overlooked the garden where early autumn colors were just beginning to show. "This is too much," she said when Vincent showed her the space. "Mr. Pellegrini believes in providing comfortable accommodations for live-in staff." Vincent replied diplomatically. "If you need anything, just use the house phone. Dinner is served at 7 in the main dining room, though you're welcome to eat in your suite if you prefer." After he left, Emma sat on the edge of the bed and tried to steady her breathing. Living here full-time meant constant proximity to Lorenzo, meant navigating the attraction that flared every time they were in the same room, meant maintaining her cover story while under constant observation, but it also meant being there for Sophia, and that mattered more than her own comfort. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door to find Sophia standing in the hallway, holding a small potted plant. "Emma, Vincent said you're staying now. I brought you a welcome gift." The little girl's voice was still quiet, but gaining strength each day. "Sophia, this is beautiful." Emma took the plant, a small succulent with thick green leaves. "Did you pick this out yourself? Mama used to say plants make rooms feel like home. I thought you might need one." The casual mention of Juliana made Emma's chest tighten. "Your mama was very smart." "Thank you, sweet girl. Can we make more bracelets tonight? I want to add orange beads." "What does orange mean?" Sophia thought for a moment. Happiness. Because I'm happy you're staying. Emma pulled the little girl into a gentle hug, blinking back unexpected tears. I'm happy too. That evening, Lorenzo found them in the main sitting room instead of Sophia's bedroom. Emma had brought down the bracelet-making supplies, and they were sprawled on the carpet surrounded by colorful beads. Sophia was laughing at something Emma had said, a sound that still caught Lorenzo off guard every time he heard it. Papa, look! Sophia held up a bracelet with intricate patterns. Emma taught me how to make zigzags. It's beautiful. He settled into a chair nearby, content to watch them work. What do all the colors mean? Red is courage, gold is victory, purple is hope, and orange is happiness, Sophia recited. We're making one for you. For me? Emma says even grown-ups need reminders that they're brave. Lorenzo's eyes met Emma's over his daughter's head. She looked away first, focusing intently on threading beads. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Sophia chattered about the book she was reading, about the stars Emma had painted on her ceiling, about wanting to go outside when she felt stronger. Lorenzo found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did, the constant tension in his shoulders easing. This felt dangerously like family. Later, after Sophia had gone to bed, Emma was cleaning up the bead supplies when Lorenzo returned to the sitting room. You don't have to do that, he said. The staff will take care of it. It's no trouble. She gathered the last of the materials into their container. Besides, I'm not used to having people clean up after me. You'll need to get used to many things if you're living here. Emma straightened, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm adaptable. I've noticed. He moved closer, and she stilled. You've adapted to Sophia's needs, to the household rhythm, to my security concerns. You barely asked questions when I told you to move in. You made it clear the situation was serious. I trust your judgment about your daughter's safety, but not about other things? I didn't say that. They stood there in the lamplight. The only sounds the distant ticking of a clock and their own breathing. Lorenzo could smell her shampoo, something clean and faintly floral. Could see the pulse beating in her throat. I had you investigated, he said abruptly. Emma went very still. And there are significant gaps in your history. Years where you simply don't exist on paper. He watched her face carefully. People with gaps like that are usually running from something or hiding something. Which is it for you? Maybe I just lived quietly. Not everyone leaves a digital trail. In Naples, one of the most documented cities in Italy? He shook his head. No. You were somewhere, doing something. And you don't want me to know what. Emma set the supply container down with deliberate care. Are you asking me to leave? No. I'm asking you to trust me with the truth. Trust is earned, Mr. Pellegrini. We barely know each other. We know each other well enough that my daughter has bonded to you in ways that terrify me. We know each other well enough that I lie awake at night wondering why you know my dead wife's lullabies. His voice dropped lower. We know each other well enough that I can't stop thinking about you. And that's a problem. The confession hung between them, raw and dangerous. Emma's breath caught. That can't happen. I know. I work for you. I take care of your daughter. That's all this can be. I know that too. But neither of them moved away. The space between them hummed with everything they weren't saying. Finally, Emma stepped back. I should check on Sophia. She's sleeping. I just looked in on her. Then I should go to bed. It's been a long day. Lorenzo nodded, not trusting himself to say more. He watched her leave the room, then sank into the nearest chair and pressed his hands against his face. This was spiraling beyond his control. Emma Foster was becoming essential to his daughter's recovery and dangerous to his own equilibrium. He couldn't have her investigated too aggressively without risking her leaving, but he couldn't let the mystery of her past remain unsolved. And he definitely couldn't keep pretending he wasn't falling for a woman whose secrets might destroy them all. The question came on a quiet Tuesday evening when Emma was helping Sophia arrange her growing collection of beaded bracelets on a velvet-lined tray. Emma? Sophia's voice was soft but clear now, no longer the whisper it had been weeks ago. Can I ask you something important? Of course, sweet girl. You can ask me anything. Sophia fidgeted with a purple bracelet, not meeting Emma's eyes. Do you think you could be my new mama? Emma's hands froze mid-motion. The bracelet she was holding slipped from her fingers and scattered beads across the carpet. She felt the air leave her lungs. Sophia, She struggled to find words that wouldn't break the little girl's heart. I love you so much. You know that, right? I know. That's why I thought maybe you could stay forever. Not just as my caregiver, but as my mama. Papa likes you too. I can tell. Tears burned behind Emma's eyes. She cupped Sophia's face gently. Your real mama loved you more than anything in this world. She's watching over you right now, and her memory is precious. I could never replace her, and I wouldn't want to. She was special, but she's gone. Sophia's lower lip trembled. And you're here. You make me feel safe like she did. You sing her songs and know her recipes, and you even do that thing with your hand when you brush my hair back. Just like her. Emma's heart cracked open. She pulled Sophia into a hug, feeling the little girl's tears soak into her shirt. I'm so glad I make you feel safe. That's the most important thing to me. But sweetheart, I'm your caregiver. I'm here to help you get better, to take care of you during treatment. When you're healthy again, you won't need me anymore. Yes, I will. I'll always need you. You'll always have me in your heart. Emma whispered, her own tears falling now. But we have to honor your mama's memory by remembering that no one can take her place. She was your first mama, your real mama, and that's forever. Sophia cried harder, and Emma held her through it, rocking gently and murmuring comfort in both English and Italian. When the tears finally subsided, Sophia pulled back and wiped her face. Will you at least stay until I'm all better? I'll stay as long as your papa needs me to. Promise? Emma kissed her forehead. I promise. 3 floors below, Lorenzo sat frozen in his study, staring at the monitor. He had heard every word, had watched Emma handle his daughter's vulnerable question with such grace and honesty that it physically hurt. But what hurt more was realizing that he had wanted Emma to say yes, had wanted her to promise forever, not just until treatment ended, had wanted to hear her claim the role of mother to his child and partner to him. Instead, she had done the right thing, the honorable thing, and he hated how much that disappointed him. The moment was interrupted by Roberto entering without knocking, his expression grim. We have a problem. Security caught 2 men taking photographs of the property from the street. When our team approached, they fled. We ran their plates. Registered to a shell company we've traced back to Rossi's organization. Lorenzo stood abruptly. How close did they get? Not onto the grounds, but close enough to photograph the east wing, where Miss Foster's suite is located. His blood ran cold. They're watching her specifically, or they're watching you watch her. Either way, they've noticed she's moved into the house, that she matters to Sophia, which means she matters to you. Roberto paused. This makes her a target. Increase patrols around the east wing. I want someone stationed below her windows at all times. And find those men. I want to know everything about them by morning. Already on it. But sir, there's something else. Roberto pulled out another file. The deep background check on Miss Foster finally yielded results. Her certification documents, the ones that allowed her to work as a pediatric caregiver, were forged. Lorenzo took the file, scanning the technical analysis. Forged by who? Someone with connections in the Neapolitan underground. The kind of person who specializes in creating clean identities for people who need to disappear, or who don't exist on paper. It's sophisticated work. Expensive. So she paid someone to give her false credentials to get into my house. Lorenzo's voice was dangerously quiet. That sounds like infiltration. Or desperation. People forge documents for many reasons, not all of them malicious. But some of them are. Lorenzo closed the file. Bring her to my office, now. Emma was putting Sophia to bed when Vincent appeared in the doorway, his expression apologetic. Miss Foster, Mr. Pellegrini requests your presence in his study, immediately. The tone sent warning bells through her system. Is something wrong? I believe that's what he wishes to discuss. Sophia grabbed Emma's hand. Don't go. Stay with me. I'll be back soon. I promise. Vincent will stay with you until I return. Okay? The walk down to Lorenzo's study felt like a march to execution. Emma's mind raced through possibilities, trying to anticipate what had changed. When she entered the room, Lorenzo was standing by his desk, face carved from stone. Close the door. She did, then waited. How long did you think you could hide it? His voice was ice. Hide what? He threw a folder onto the desk. Papers spilled out. Technical documents she couldn't fully read from across the room. Your certification documents are forgeries. Expert forgeries, but forgeries nonetheless. Created by someone in Naples with ties to organized crime. Emma's stomach dropped. She had known this moment might come, but she hadn't prepared for how it would feel. I can explain. Can you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like someone sent you here deliberately. Someone who knew about my family, about Sophia, about weaknesses they could exploit. He moved closer, anger rolling off him in waves. The Ndrangheta has been watching this house, taking photographs. And now I find out the woman I've trusted with my daughter's life lied about her credentials to get hired. What am I supposed to think? I would never hurt Sophia. Never. I love her. Love isn't proof of innocence. People use love as weapons all the time in my world. Emma lifted her chin. Then what do you want from me? A confession. An explanation you've already decided you won't believe? I want the truth. Who sent you here? What organization do you work for? What's the real reason you needed forged documents to get into this house? I had my reasons. Personal reasons that have nothing to do with rival families or territory disputes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. Lorenzo's jaw clenched. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That I wouldn't investigate someone living under my roof, caring for my child? I have resources you can't imagine, Emma. I will find out the truth with or without your cooperation. Then I guess you'll have to find out without it. Why? Why protect whoever helped you, unless you're afraid of them? Unless they have something on you? Emma remained silent, which was answer itself. Lorenzo ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. Sophia is thriving because of you. She's speaking, laughing, engaging with her treatment. Her doctors say her recovery is progressing faster than expected. If I send you away now, it could set her back months, maybe permanently. So don't send me away. How can I trust you? How can I let you near my daughter when I don't know your real agenda? You've been watching me on those cameras for weeks. You've seen every interaction I've had with Sophia. Have I ever done anything that seemed suspicious? Have I ever tried to access parts of the house I shouldn't? Have I asked questions about your business or your security? He wanted to argue but couldn't. No. Then trust what you've seen, not what you're afraid of. They stared at each other across the desk, both breathing hard. Here's what's going to happen, Lorenzo said finally. You will stay in this house until Sophia completes her treatment. You will continue to care for her exactly as you have been. But when she no longer needs medical support, when she's healthy and this chapter is closed, you will leave. You will have no further contact with her or with me. You will take your secrets and disappear from our lives. The words hit Emma like physical blows. That will hurt her. She's attached to me. She'll recover. Children are resilient. And what about you? The question escaped before she could stop it. Lorenzo's expression shuddered completely. What about me? Will you recover? I'll do what I always do. Protect what's mine and eliminate threats. Is that what I am to you? A threat? I don't know what you are. That's the problem. Emma felt tears threatening, but refused to let them fall. Fine. I'll stay until Sophia is better. Then I'll go. But you should know that everything I've done here, every moment I've spent with your daughter, has been real. My feelings aren't forged. She turned and left before he could respond, walking blindly through the corridors until she reached her suite. Once inside, she locked the door and sank onto the bed, finally letting the tears come. She had known this was temporary, had known that eventually the truth would surface and destroy whatever fragile connection she'd built with this family. But she hadn't expected it to hurt this much. Downstairs, Lorenzo poured himself a drink with shaking hands and returned to the monitors. Sophia was awake again, crying softly. She had probably felt the shift in the household, the tension crackling through the walls. He should go to her, should comfort his daughter, but he couldn't make himself move. Instead, he watched as Emma appeared in Sophia's doorway, eyes red but face composed. She climbed into bed beside the little girl, pulling her close and singing softly until the tears stopped. Whatever Emma was hiding, whatever lies she'd told to get here, one truth remained undeniable. She loved his daughter, and Sophia loved her back. Lorenzo finished his drink and made a decision. He would keep Emma here until Sophia was healthy. He would maintain professional distance, and he would keep digging into her past until he found answers. But he wouldn't think about how empty the house would feel when she left. Wouldn't acknowledge the ache in his chest at the thought of never seeing her again. Some things were too dangerous to want, and Emma Foster might be the most dangerous thing of all. The medical alarm pierced the silence at 3 a.m, a shrill electronic scream that sent Emma bolting upright in bed. She was running before her mind fully processed what was happening, bare feet slapping against cold marble as she sprinted down the hallway. Sophia's room was bathed in harsh lamplight. The little girl was convulsing, her small body rigid against the sheets, eyes rolled back, foam at the corners of her mouth. "Sophia!" Emma's training kicked in instantly. She rolled the child onto her side, supporting her head to prevent injury. "Vincent, call the doctor now." The house manager appeared in the doorway, phone already in hand. "Ambulance is on the way. Tell them possible allergic reaction to new medication, status epilepticus. Patient is 6 years old with compromised immune system." Emma's voice was calm, clinical, completely different from her usual gentle tone. Her fingers found Sophia's pulse, counting beats while watching the convulsions. "Get me the emergency kit from the bathroom cabinet. The red case." Vincent moved immediately. Emma maintained her position, one hand steadying Sophia's head, the other checking her airway. The convulsions were violent, lasting far too long. 30 seconds, 45, a minute. "Come on, sweet girl. Come back to me." Emma's clinical mask cracked slightly. "You're stronger than this. Fight it." Lorenzo burst through the door, still in the clothes he'd been wearing hours ago. His face drained of color when he saw his daughter seizing. "What happened? What's wrong with her?" "New medication. Her body's rejecting it." Emma accepted the red case from Vincent and flipped it open with practiced efficiency. Inside were emergency supplies that went far beyond basic first aid. She pulled out a pre-measured syringe. "This is going to stop the seizure, but I need you to hold her steady. You can't just inject her with random medication." "It's not random. It's benzodiazepine, standard treatment for prolonged seizures. If we don't stop this in the next 30 seconds, she could have permanent brain damage." Emma's eyes met his, fierce and certain. "Trust me or get out of my way." Lorenzo knelt beside the bed, hands shaking as he helped steady his daughter. Emma administered the injection with the precision of someone who had done this 100 times. They waited, counting seconds that felt like hours. Slowly, the convulsions began to ease. Sophia's body relaxed, her breathing becoming less labored. Emma checked her vital signs again, then carefully positioned her in recovery position. Her airway is clear. Pulse is stabilizing. The medication is working. Emma finally allowed herself to breathe, but she needs to get to a hospital. The reaction could restart. The medical team arrived within minutes. Emma briefed them with the kind of detailed information that made the lead paramedic pause and study her. "You have medical training?" "Some. Basic emergency response." "That was a lot more than basic, ma'am." They loaded Sophia onto a stretcher. Lorenzo climbed into the ambulance without hesitation, but before the doors closed, his eyes found Emma's. "Come with us." It wasn't a request. The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell. Sophia was rushed into the pediatric intensive care unit, while Emma and Lorenzo were relegated to a waiting room with uncomfortable chairs and magazines nobody read. Lorenzo paced like a caged animal, phone pressed to his ear as he coordinated with his security team, his medical contacts, anyone who might provide information faster than the doctors would. Emma sat motionless, hands clasped in her lap, still wearing the pajamas she'd thrown on before running to Sophia's room. Her mind replayed every second of the crisis, analyzing what she could have done differently. Faster. Better. "They said she's stable." Lorenzo's voice cut through her thoughts. He had ended his call and was standing in front of her, exhaustion and fear etched into every line of his face. "The seizure didn't cause lasting damage. You stopped it in time. Good. Where did you learn to do that?" His voice was quiet but intense. That wasn't basic first aid. You knew exactly what medication to give, exactly how to handle a medical emergency that would have panicked most caregivers. You worked like a trained professional. Emma looked down at her hands. I picked up things over the years. No. Lorenzo sat beside her, close enough that their knees almost touched. You don't pick up that level of skill. You're trained, extensively trained, and you've been hiding it. Does it matter? Sophia is safe. It matters because my daughter almost died tonight, and the only reason she didn't is because you had knowledge and supplies that a regular caregiver wouldn't have. It matters because you've been lying about who you are since the moment you walked into my house. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Who are you really, Emma Foster? The dam broke. All the secrets she'd been carrying, all the weight of her deception, finally became too much. Emma felt tears streaming down her face before she could stop them. I was 12 years old, she whispered. 12 years old and dying in an alley in Naples. My mother had left me there. She was an addict, chose drugs over her daughter, and I had pneumonia so bad I couldn't stand up. I remember thinking this was how I would die. Alone. Forgotten. Lorenzo's grip on her wrist loosened but didn't release. Then this woman found me. Beautiful. Kind. With this voice that made me think maybe angels were real. She picked me up, carried me to her car, and took me to a private hospital. Paid for everything. The doctor said if she'd found me an hour later, I would have been gone. Emma wiped at her face roughly. She didn't just save my life that day. She changed it. She placed me in an orphanage run by nuns, a good place with education and safety. And she visited me. Every month for 5 years, this woman would come and spend time with me. She taught me Italian songs, told me stories, brought me books. She paid for my schooling, including basic nursing courses because I told her I wanted to help people the way she helped me. Juliana. Lorenzo's voice was hoarse. I didn't know her full name. She only ever introduced herself as Juliana. The nun said she requested privacy, that she helped many children and didn't want attention or gratitude. They protected her identity. Emma finally looked at him, her blue eyes swimming with tears. I loved her. She was the only mother I ever really had. And then one day she stopped coming. The nuns told me she was sick, that she couldn't visit anymore. 6 months later, they told me she had died, 2 years ago. Yes, I was devastated, but I still didn't know who she really was. Not until I saw her obituary online. Giuliana Pellegrini, wife of Lorenzo Pellegrini, mother to Sofia Pellegrini. There was a photo, and I recognized her face, even though it had been years since I'd seen her. Emma's voice broke. She had a family. A real family. And she still made time for a street kid from the slums. Lorenzo released her wrist and covered his face with both hands. When I read that her daughter was sick, that Sofia had leukemia, I knew what I had to do. Juliana saved my life. The least I could do was try to help save her daughter's life. Emma straightened her shoulders. I spent 2 years training properly as a pediatric caregiver. I worked terrible jobs to save money. But when I tried to apply to agencies, they wanted references from previous employers, family connections, things that orphans don't have. So I found someone who could create documentation that would pass initial screening. I'm qualified to do this job. The training is real. I just had to forge the paper trail because my past doesn't exist in the way agencies require. You came here specifically to help Sophia. I came here to honor the woman who gave me everything. My life, my education, my chance at a future. She never asked for anything in return. Never made me feel like charity. She just loved me because she could, because that's who she was. Emma's voice strengthened. Sophia is her legacy, and I will protect that little girl with everything I have, even if you hate me for lying to get here. Silence filled the waiting room. Lorenzo sat perfectly still, processing revelations that rewrote his understanding of both his wife and the woman beside him. Juliana had a whole life I knew nothing about, he finally said. She would leave sometimes, tell me she was visiting family in Naples. I thought she meant her parents, her cousins. I never questioned it because she seemed happy when she returned. Peaceful. She probably was. Helping people brought her joy. She helped you, saved you. And in return, You've saved the most precious thing she left behind. Lorenzo turned to face Emma fully. The nuns, they kept her identity secret. She made them promise. She said her work with children needed to be separate from her family name. That it was too dangerous to mix the two worlds. Emma's eyes widened. She knew, didn't she? She knew what you were, what your name meant. She was protecting us. From people exactly like Antonio Rossi. From men who would use children as leverage. Lorenzo's jaw clenched. She understood my world better than I gave her credit for. A doctor appeared in the doorway. Mr. Pellegrini? Your daughter is awake and asking for both of you. They followed him through sterile corridors to a private room where Sophia lay in a hospital bed, looking small and pale but alert. Her face brightened when she saw them. Papa. Emma. I scared you. Lorenzo reached her first, gathering her carefully into his arms. You terrified us. But you're okay now. You're going to be okay. Emma gave me medicine. I remember that part. She knew exactly what to do. Sophia reached for Emma's hand. How did you know? Emma squeezed her hand gently. Because your mama taught me. A long time ago, when I needed help, she was there for me, and she made sure I had the skills to be there for other people when they needed help. Including you. Mama sent you to us? In a way, yes, I think she did. Sophia smiled. And for just a moment, Emma saw Juliana's expression on the little girl's face. That same warmth, that same instinctive kindness. Then you have to stay forever, Sophia said simply. If Mama sent you, that means you're supposed to be part of our family. Emma's eyes filled with tears again. She looked at Lorenzo, expecting to see anger or betrayal. Instead, she saw something that looked almost like wonder. We'll talk about it when you're better, he said softly to his daughter. For now, just rest. Let your body heal. After Sophia fell asleep, Lorenzo walked Emma to the hallway. They stood in the fluorescent light, both exhausted, both emotionally wrung out. I need time to process this, Lorenzo said. Everything you've told me changes how I see the past 2 years, how I see Juliana, how I see you. I understand, and I'm sorry for lying. You weren't lying, not really. You just didn't tell me the whole truth. He ran a hand through his hair. You falsified documents to get hired, but you did it to honor a debt to the woman who saved your life. You hid your advanced medical training, but you used it to save my daughter. You kept secrets, but the secrets were about protecting Juliana's memory, not hurting her family. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I believe you. Lorenzo's hand came up, hovering near her face before falling back to his side. My wife saw something in you worth saving, worth investing years of her life into. And now I see it too. Emma's breath caught. Stay, Lorenzo said quietly. Not just until Sophia is better. Stay because you're already part of this family, whether we planned it or not. Stay because Juliana brought us together for a reason. I don't know if I can. Why not? Because loving people means eventually losing them. I've lost everyone I ever loved. My mother abandoned me. Juliana died. If I let myself love you and Sophia completely, if I let myself believe this could be real, she couldn't finish the sentence. Lorenzo stepped closer. Then you'd be taking the same risk we are. Sophia loves you already. And he paused, choosing words carefully. I'm falling for a woman who knew my wife's secrets, who shares her compassion, who fights for my daughter like she's her own. Maybe that's Juliana's final gift to both of us, a second chance at family. Emma wanted to believe him, wanted to accept the future he was offering. But years of survival had taught her that hope was dangerous. Let me think about it, she whispered. Lorenzo nodded, then did something unexpected. He pulled her into his arms, holding her while she finally let herself cry for everything she'd lost and everything she might yet gain. In the hospital room behind them, Sophia slept peacefully, dreaming of the mother she'd lost and the woman who might help her father finally heal. Sophia came home from the hospital 3 days later, weak but stable. The doctors had adjusted her medication protocol, eliminating the compound that caused the severe reaction. Emma stayed close during the transition, monitoring every symptom, every change in color or energy level. Lorenzo watched them both with an intensity that made the air feel electric. He spent those days doing something he hadn't allowed himself since Juliana's death, remembering her completely. Not just the sanitized version of grief, but the real woman with all her complexities and secrets. The business trips to Naples that lasted longer than necessary. The way she'd return with stories about her cousin's children, details that now seemed deliberately vague, the substantial charitable donations that appeared on their accounts, always to organizations helping at-risk youth. She had built an entire world of compassion separate from his world of violence, and she'd done it to protect both sides. "I need everything on Juliana's activities in Naples," Lorenzo told Roberto in his study. "Every donation, every organization she supported, every connection to Santa Maria delle Grazie orphanage. I want confirmation of Emma's story down to the smallest detail." Roberto returned 2 days later with a file thick enough to require both hands. "The orphanage records are extensive. Your wife made anonymous donations for 15 years, substantial amounts that funded education programs, medical care, and housing improvements. The nuns kept meticulous records of her visits, though they only identified her as Juliana from Naples." Roberto opened to a marked page. There are notes about a specific child she took special interest in. A girl brought in at 12 years old, nearly dead from pneumonia and malnutrition. The medical bills alone were significant. Lorenzo studied the dates. They aligned perfectly with Emma's timeline. The nuns confirmed that Juliana visited this child monthly for 5 years, paid for her nursing education, maintained contact until shortly before her cancer diagnosis. Roberto paused. They said Juliana made them promise never to reveal her full identity to the children she helped. She believed her family name would put them in danger. She was right. Lorenzo closed the file. Emma Foster is exactly who she claims to be. So what now? Now I figure out how to keep her here. But Emma had other plans. Lorenzo found her packing 2 days later, carefully folding clothes into the same suitcases she'd arrived with. His chest tightened at the sight. "What are you doing?" She didn't turn around. "Sophia is stable. The immediate crisis has passed. It's time for me to go. We never discussed you leaving. You said I could stay until she was better. She's better." Emma's voice was steady, but he heard the strain beneath it. "I've overstayed my welcome. Sophia needs you. Sophia needs her father. She needs stability and honesty, not a caregiver with a complicated past who lied to get hired." Emma finally faced him. "I gave you what I came to give. I honored my debt to Juliana. Now I need to let you build your life without the reminder of secrets and deception." "Is that what you think you are? A reminder of deception?" "Aren't I?" Lorenzo crossed the room in 3 strides. "You're the woman my wife chose to save. The woman she trusted with her time, her resources, her love. You're the person who brought my daughter back from the edge of silence and despair. He stopped, struggling with words. "You're not leaving. You can't order me to stay." "I'm not ordering. I'm asking." His hands flexed at his sides. "Please don't go." Emma's resolve wavered. "Lorenzo, I don't belong here. I'm not part of your world. You became part of it the moment Juliana decided you were worth saving. You became part of it when Sophia called you her second chance at happiness. You became part of it when He couldn't finish. The moment stretched between them, fragile and vital. Then Sophia's voice cut through from the hallway. "Emma? Papa? Where are you?" They found her standing outside Emma's suite, eyes red from crying. "You're leaving." It wasn't a question. "I heard Vincent talking to the other staff. He said you were packing." Emma knelt in front of her. "Sweetheart, No." Sophia's voice cracked. "You promised. You said you'd stay as long as Papa needed you. He still needs you. I still need you. Please don't leave me too." The last 3 words destroyed something in Emma's chest. "Oh, Sophia, everyone I love goes away. Mama left. The nurses left. The other caregivers left. You're the only one who stayed when things got hard. You're the only one who sings Mama's songs and makes me feel like maybe I'm not losing her completely." Tears streamed down the little girl's face. "If you go, it's like losing her all over again." Lorenzo pulled his daughter into his arms, but his eyes never left Emma's. "You heard her. We need you. I can't stay just because a child is afraid of loss. That's not healthy for anyone. Then stay because you want to. Lorenzo's voice dropped lower. Stay because walking away from this family would hurt you as much as it hurts us. Emma stood slowly, her own tears threatening. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking you to trust that Juliana knew what she was doing, that she saved you for a reason beyond just surviving, that maybe the reason was this moment, this family, this chance to complete what she started. He shifted Sophia in his arms. I'm asking you to be brave. Before Emma could respond, Roberto appeared at the end of the hallway, phone in hand and expression grim. Sir, we have a situation. Lorenzo handed Sophia to Emma and stepped away. What kind of situation? Intercepted communication. Rossi's people are planning a move. They know Sophia was hospitalized. They know the transport route you'll use for her next appointment. They're planning an ambush during the transfer. Ice flooded Lorenzo's veins. When? Tomorrow morning. They think you'll take her to the oncology center for her scheduled treatment. How did they get that information? We're still investigating. But sir, they mentioned the caregiver specifically. They know Emma is important to Sophia, which makes her important to you. They see it as leverage. Emma's arms tightened protectively around Sophia. Lorenzo's mind raced through options, strategies, countermeasures. Cancel the appointment. We'll have the medical team come here instead. Already arranged. But this doesn't solve the larger problem. Rossi knows your weakness now. He'll keep probing until he finds an opening. Then we eliminate the threat permanently. Lorenzo's voice went cold. Get me locations on all known Rossi operations. I want coordinated strikes ready within the hour. Sir, that's escalating to war. They threatened my daughter. It's already war. Roberto left to make arrangements. Lorenzo turned back to find Emma watching him with an expression he couldn't read. This is your world, she said quietly. This is what Sophia will grow up seeing. This is me protecting what's mine. Would you have me do less? I'd have you be careful. Strategic. Emma's voice steadied. And I'd have you listen when I tell you that 3 weeks ago, I mentioned seeing a silver sedan parked across the street at odd hours. Your security team dismissed it as a neighbor's guest. Lorenzo froze. What? I didn't think much of it at the time, but I grew up on streets where noticing details kept you alive. That car appeared 4 times over 2 weeks, always with the same driver. A man in his 30s with a scar above his left eyebrow. He never got out, just sat there watching the house for 20 minutes, then left. Why didn't you report this formally? I did. I told Vincent. He said your security team monitored all vehicles in the area and found nothing concerning. Emma's eyes held his. But I wrote down the license plate anyway. Force of habit from my time in Naples. You learn to document things that feel wrong. Roberto, who had returned to overhear this, pulled out his phone. What's the plate number? Emma recited it from memory. Roberto typed rapidly, then went very still. That vehicle is registered to a holding company we've traced to Rossi's network. It was part of their initial surveillance operation. He looked at Lorenzo. Your security team missed it, but she caught it. Because I know what predatory observation looks like. Emma's voice was hard now. I survived years by recognizing when someone was watching me for the wrong reasons. Your high-tech security system is designed to catch obvious threats. It doesn't catch the subtle ones, the patient ones. Lorenzo stared at her, something clicking into place. What else have you noticed? The delivery driver who comes twice a week arrives at different times than the regular schedule, but always when Sophia is visible through the garden windows. The maintenance worker who serviced the East Wing cameras took 3 times longer than necessary and asked unusual questions about Sophia's routine. Enough. Lorenzo held up a hand. Roberto, verify everything she just said. Within 30 minutes, they had confirmation. The delivery company had no record of schedule changes. The maintenance worker wasn't on their approved contractor list. Every detail Emma mentioned checked out as a potential security breach that the formal systems had missed. You have instincts my trained professionals lack, Lorenzo said, something like awe in his voice. Street-level survival skills that complement tactical security. I notice things. It doesn't make me special. It makes you valuable. It makes you someone I'd be a fool to let walk away. He moved closer. You want to know why I'm asking you to stay? This is why. Not just because Sophia loves you. Not just because you honor Juliana's memory, but because you make us stronger. You see threats we miss. You bring skills we don't have. You're not a weakness, Emma. You're an asset. I don't want to be an asset. I don't want to be useful. Then be family. The words came out rougher than he intended. Be the woman who belongs here because she chooses to, not because she owes a debt or serves a purpose. Sophia, still in Emma's arms, looked between them with wide eyes. Does this mean you're staying? Emma felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to protect herself from the inevitable pain of loving and losing again. But another voice, quieter and stronger, sounded like Juliana. Sometimes the bravest thing is staying when leaving would be easier. She looked at Lorenzo, really looked at him. Saw past the dangerous mafia boss to the father who was terrified of failing his daughter, the widower who was learning to honor his wife's memory by embracing the gifts she'd left behind, the man who was asking her to be brave enough to build something new from shared grief. I'll stay, Emma whispered. Not because of debts or obligations, because you're right. Walking away would destroy me. Lorenzo's relief was visible. He reached for her face, then seemed to remember Sophia watching and dropped his hand. We should finish dealing with the security situation. Use the information Emma provided, Roberto said. Between her observations and our tactical capabilities, we can identify every vulnerability in Rossi's operation. The next several hours were a blur of planning and coordination. Emma sat in Lorenzo's study, providing detailed descriptions of everything she'd noticed over the past weeks. Roberto's team cross-referenced her observations with surveillance data, building a comprehensive picture of the Ndrangheta's operation. By dawn, Lorenzo had authorized surgical strikes on 3 Rossi locations. Not warfare, but precise elimination of the specific cells that threatened his family. By noon, the threat was neutralized. Roberto's follow-up came an hour later, clipped and certain. Rossi's people had been hit hard enough to break their appetite for a fight, and the records recovered in the raids were already moving through the right hands. Quiet leverage that would keep the survivors looking over their shoulders instead of toward Lorenzo's home. Most importantly, Rossi himself went dark. No messages. No intermediaries. No retaliatory posturing. A man like that didn't stop because he found mercy. He stopped because he finally understood he couldn't win without inviting the kind of attention that devours everyone. Sophia slept through all of it, safely tucked in her bed with extra security posted outside her door. It was nearly midnight when Lorenzo finally found Emma in the garden, sitting on a stone bench under the stars. Sophia is asking for you, he said quietly. She wants you to sing her to sleep. I'll go up in a moment. Emma didn't move. I needed air first. Needed to process that I just helped plan a military operation against organized crime. Lorenzo sat beside her. Having second thoughts? About staying? No. About what staying means? Constantly. She turned to face him. Your world is violent, dangerous, full of threats that most people never encounter. I know. And I'd understand if you chose to leave because of it. I'm not leaving. But I need you to understand something. Emma's voice strengthened. Juliana kept her work with children separate from your world because she knew both needed protection. If I stay, if I become part of this family, I need the same separation. I won't be involved in your business. I won't know details of operations or conflicts. I'll care for Sophia, be present for this family. But the violence stays outside. I can live with that. Can you? Because I watched you tonight. Watched you make decisions about people's lives with the same calculation you'd use for a business deal. That's who you are. That's your world. And I need to know you won't pull me or Sophia into it more than absolutely necessary. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. My father used to say that the hardest part of this life is knowing when to be the monster and when to be the man. I've spent years being mostly the monster because it was safer. Easier. But you and Sophia, you make me want to remember how to be the man. Then be him, for her, for us. Emma reached for his hand. Juliana saw something in you worth loving despite everything. I'm starting to see it too. Don't make us regret that faith. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. I'll spend the rest of my life earning it. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, until Sophia's voice called from her window. Emma, I can't sleep without my song. Emma laughed softly. I should go. Lorenzo stood with her but didn't release her hand. Earlier, when I said you make us stronger, I didn't just mean tactically. You make me stronger. You remind me what I'm protecting and why it matters. Lorenzo, he pulled her close, one hand cupping her face. I've been fighting this for weeks. Fighting the way I feel when you walk into a room. Fighting the knowledge that you're becoming essential to my life in ways that terrify me. I'm done fighting it. What are you saying? I'm saying that Juliana brought you into our lives for a reason. Maybe it was to save Sophia. Maybe it was to save me. Maybe it was both. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I'm saying that I'm falling in love with you, Emma Foster. And I think you feel the same. Her breath caught. This is complicated. Everything in my life is complicated. But this us feels like the one simple truth in all the chaos. Emma rose on her toes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, then deepened as months of repressed emotion finally found release. Lorenzo's arms came around her, holding her like something precious and vital. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. I love you, Emma whispered. I've loved you since the night I watched you cry while watching Sophia sleep. Since you confronted me about my secrets because you were terrified, not angry. Since you chose to believe in me even when you had every reason not to. Then stay, not as a caregiver or a debt repaid. Stay as the woman I want to build a future with. What kind of future? The kind where Sophia has a mother who loves her. Where I have a partner who sees me completely and chooses me anyway. Where we honor Juliana's memory by living the kind of life she would have wanted for all of us. Sophia's voice called again, more insistent. Emma! Papa! Are you kissing in the garden? Because I can see you from my window. They broke apart, laughing. We should go up, Emma said. Lorenzo kept her hand in his. Together, they climbed the stairs side by side, and for the first time since Juliana's death, Lorenzo felt like his house was becoming a home again. The call came from Lorenzo's legal team 6 weeks after Emma agreed to stay. She was reading to Sophia in the garden when Vincent appeared with a message that Mr. Pellegrini needed to see her in his study. Sophia looked up from her book, eyes bright. Are you in trouble? I don't think so, sweet girl. Finish this chapter and I'll be back before you know it. Lorenzo was standing by the window when Emma entered, sunlight catching the silver at his temples. He turned, and she saw something peaceful in his expression. Your documentation is clean, he said without preamble. I had my attorneys work with contacts in Naples. Your nursing certification is now properly filed with all the correct agencies. Your work visa has been upgraded to permanent residency status. As far as anyone is concerned, Emma Foster has always been exactly who she claimed to be. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. How? I have resources, and I protect what matters to me. He crossed the room, taking her hands. You don't have to look over your shoulder anymore. You're not hiding. You're just living. Lorenzo, this must have cost... Don't. Whatever it cost was worth it to see that expression on your face right now. His thumb traced circles on her palm. You gave up everything to honor Juliana's memory. The least I can do is give you a clean slate to build your future. Our future. Emma corrected softly. Our future. He pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. Sophia's oncologist called this morning. They have results from her latest scans. Emma's heart clenched. And she wants to deliver them in person, tomorrow afternoon. The whole family should be present. The next day felt like it lasted a year. Emma kept Sophia distracted with games and stories, while Lorenzo handled business calls with unusual terseness. When Dr. Patel finally arrived, they gathered in the sitting room like defendants awaiting a verdict. The doctor opened her tablet, then looked up with a smile that transformed her usually serious face. Sophia's scans are completely clear. No trace of cancer cells. Her blood work is excellent. Her immune system is rebuilding ahead of schedule. She set the tablet aside. Sophia, you're in complete remission. The room erupted. Sophia burst into tears and threw herself at Emma, who caught her while crying herself. Lorenzo stood frozen for a moment before his composure cracked, and he joined them, wrapping both of them in his arms. You did it, Emma whispered into Sophia's hair. You fought so hard and you won. We won, Sophia corrected. All of us together. Dr. Patel gave them space for celebration, providing details about monitoring schedules and gradual return to normal activities. When she finally left, Sophia was exhausted from emotion and fell asleep on the couch between Lorenzo and Emma. She's really okay, Lorenzo said, more to himself than Emma. After everything, she's going to be okay. She's going to be more than okay. She's going to thrive. Lorenzo looked at Emma over his sleeping daughter's head. I need to ask you something. Here now, while she's sleeping. Because she needs to be part of what comes next. Emma's pulse quickened. What are you talking about? Instead of answering, Lorenzo carefully extracted himself from the couch and knelt on the floor beside it. From his pocket, he pulled a small velvet box. Emma Foster, 6 months ago, you walked into my life with secrets and determination and a mission to honor a woman we both loved. You gave my daughter her voice back. You taught me how to be present instead of hiding behind fear. You saw the worst parts of my world and chose to stay anyway. Emma's hand covered her mouth as tears started falling. I'm not asking you to be Sophia's caregiver anymore. I'm asking you to be her mother. To officially become the family that we already are in our hearts. He opened the box, revealing a ring with a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. Marry me, not because of gratitude or convenience. Marry me because I love you, because you make me want to be better than I am, because Juliana brought us together and I think she'd want this. Papa's asking Emma to marry him. Sophia's sleepy voice interrupted. I'm not actually sleeping. This is too important. Lorenzo laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. Were you faking the whole time? Only for 5 minutes, but you were taking too long to ask. Sophia sat up and took Emma's hand. Say yes. Please say yes. We need you. Emma looked between them. These two people who had become her entire world. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Lorenzo slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her, while Sophia cheered. The moment was imperfect and perfect, exactly like the family they were building. The months that followed were a study in gradual transformation. Emma's role shifted from caregiver to something that had no official title but felt like coming home. She and Sophia began adoption paperwork, a process that Lorenzo's attorneys expedited with the same efficiency they'd used to legitimize her documents. Lorenzo threw himself into being present, attending Sophia's medical checkups, joining their evening routines, learning to participate instead of observe. He still ran his organization, still made difficult decisions in the darkened study, but he'd learned to separate that world from the one he was building with Emma and Sophia. 3 months after the proposal, a package arrived from Naples. Emma recognized the return address immediately. Santa Maria delle Grazie. I mentioned to the nuns that I was getting married, Emma explained to Lorenzo as she carefully opened the box. They said they had something that belonged to me. Something Juliana left years ago with instructions to give to me if I ever returned for it. Inside was a smaller wooden box, worn with age. Emma lifted the lid with trembling hands and found letters. Dozens of them, written in Juliana's elegant script, each dated and sealed. She wrote to me, Emma whispered. All those years, she was writing letters. They read them together that night, after Sophia went to bed. Letters chronicling Juliana's thoughts about helping children, her hopes for Emma's future, her joy at watching the street girl transform into a young woman with purpose and kindness. The final letter was dated 3 weeks before Juliana's cancer diagnosis. My dear Emma, Lorenzo read aloud, his voice thick with emotion. If you are reading this, then I am gone. I pray that you have found happiness and family, that you are no longer alone in the world. You were one of my greatest joys, proof that one person's kindness can change a life completely. I have a daughter named Sophia, who is 6 years old as I write this. She is brave and clever and full of light. If something happens to me, if you ever meet her, I hope you will see in her the same potential I saw in you. Love her as I loved you. Protect her as I protected you. And if my husband seems lost, be patient with him. He's a good man trapped in a hard world, and he will need someone who understands both survival and compassion. You owe me nothing, Emma. You never did. But if you choose to help my family should they need it, Know that it would bring me peace. You were my heart's work. My daughter is my heart itself. Perhaps together, you can both heal. With all my love, Juliana." Emma was sobbing by the end. Lorenzo set the letter down carefully and pulled her into his arms. She knew, Emma choked out. Somehow she knew this would happen. Or she hoped. She hoped that if something happened to her, the girl she saved might save us in return. Lorenzo kissed her temple. She chose well. They showed Sophia the letters the next day, reading the appropriate ones aloud and explaining the ones that were too adult. Sophia listened with wide eyes, then carefully touched the paper. "Mama wanted us to be a family," she said simply. "She picked Emma for us." "She did," Lorenzo agreed. "And we're going to honor that by being the best family we can be." The wedding happened in early autumn, when the garden was at its most beautiful. They kept it intimate, just close family and a few trusted friends. Sophia served as maid of honor, wearing a lavender dress that Emma had designed with small stars embroidered along the hem. "For all the stars you painted on my ceiling," Sophia had explained. "So Mama's stars are part of the wedding, too." Emma wore cream silk, simple and elegant. As she walked down the makeshift aisle between garden chairs, she thought about the journey that had brought her here, from dying in a Naples alley to marrying into a family she'd once only dreamed of meeting. Lorenzo waited at the end of the aisle, looking at her like she was something miraculous. When she reached him, he took her hands and whispered, "Thank you for staying. Thank you for giving me a reason to." The ceremony was brief, but meaningful. When the officiant pronounced them married, Sophia was the first to hug them both. "Now you're officially my mama," she said to Emma. "Now I'm officially the luckiest woman alive," Emma corrected. The months that followed didn't feel like a fairy tale. They felt like work. Appointments and blood draws, nights when Sophia's body was too tired to be brave, and mornings when Emma still woke, half expecting the ground to vanish beneath her. But slowly, the calendar changed its meaning. Treatments became less frequent. The word remission stopped sounding like a dare and started sounding like permission to breathe. They learned the rhythm of their new life in the spaces between fear. Lorenzo stopped living through monitors. Emma stopped living like she was temporary. And somewhere in the second spring after the wedding, hope took on weight and heartbeat. By the time summer turned again, Marco arrived angry and perfect, and Sophia declared him hers before he even opened his eyes. 2 years later, the garden was filled with different sounds. A baby's gurgling laugh mixed with Sophia's animated chatter as she tried to teach her 3-month-old brother Italian words. "Say Stella, Marco. It means star, like the ones on your nursery ceiling." Marco, who looked like a perfect blend of Lorenzo and Emma with dark hair and blue eyes, made an incomprehensible sound that Sophia decided to interpret as success. Emma watched from a blanket spread on the grass, marveling at how completely her life had transformed. Sophia was 8 now, healthy and vibrant, with no trace of the silent, sick child she'd been. The cancer remained in remission, and with each passing month, the fear of relapse faded a little more. Lorenzo emerged from the house carrying a tray with drinks and snacks. He'd learned domestic gestures over the past 2 years, small acts of care that came more naturally now. "Your daughter is convinced the baby said Stella," he told Emma as he settled beside her. "Our daughter," Emma corrected with a smile. "And she might be right. He's very advanced." "Of course he is. Look at his parents." Lorenzo leaned over to kiss her, then Marco, then called Sophia over. "Come here, little star. It's time for the song." This had become their tradition. Every Sunday evening when weather permitted, they gathered in the garden and sang the old Neapolitan lullabies that Juliana had taught Emma, who had taught Sophia, who was now teaching Marco. Sophia settled between them, and Emma started the melody. "Stelle e Stelline." Lorenzo joined in this time, his voice rusty but earnest. He'd spent months learning the words, practicing in private until he could sing without embarrassment. For Juliana, for his family. Sophia's voice was clear and strong, carrying the tune with confidence. Marco waved his tiny fists in what might have been rhythm. As the sun set over the garden, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Emma felt a presence she couldn't quite name. Maybe it was memory. Maybe it was gratitude. Maybe it was Juliana, watching over the family she'd assembled through one impulsive act of kindness years ago. Do you think she knows? Emma asked quietly when the song ended. Lorenzo understood immediately. I think she knew before we did. Knew that saving you would eventually save us. She changed my life twice. Once when she found me dying in that alley. Again when she brought me back to you and Sophia. She changed all our lives. But you're the one who stayed. You're the one who fought for this family when you could have walked away. Lorenzo wrapped his arm around her shoulders. We wouldn't be here without you. Sophia leaned against Emma's other side. Tell us the story again, about how Mama found you. Emma had told this story countless times, but it never got old. Sophia needed to hear it, to understand the connection that made their family unique. Marco would hear it too when he was old enough to understand. I was 12 years old, Emma began, and I thought I was going to die alone. But then this woman appeared. As she talked, the stars began to emerge overhead, tiny pinpricks of light against the darkening sky. Sophia had taught Marco to look for them during twilight, continuing the tradition Juliana had started years ago. Stella e stelline, Sophia whispered to her baby brother. Stars and little stars. Mama is watching from up there, and Mama Emma is right here with us. The baby grabbed Sophia's finger and squeezed. Lorenzo pulled Emma closer, resting his head against hers. We made it. Through everything, we made it to this. We did, Emma agreed. And it's only the beginning. The garden filled with contentment as the family sat together under emerging stars. Somewhere in memory, Juliana smiled, her work complete. She had saved a child who saved a family, creating a circle of love that would ripple forward through generations. In the house behind them, monitors sat dark and unused. Lorenzo no longer needed to watch from a distance. He was finally present, finally whole, finally home. And Emma Foster, the girl from the Naples streets who became Emma Pellegrini, wife and mother and heart of this unlikely family, had finally found where she belonged.